Hi, my name is Jay Oza. I am the host of Speech Talk Live, and this marks episode number 9. I am based out of Hazlet, New Jersey. It's about 50 miles from New York City, and I'm kind of doing three things right now. One is I have a consulting business it's called Tool Group, and I help small companies generate sales. Uh, the second thing I'm currently working on is something that's kind of taking longer, as I'm currently writing two books, but I've decided to just focus on one, which is kind of complements this course, public speaking. So that's tying up a lot of my time. And then the third thing, obviously, is this program that we do every Friday, which also requires quite a bit of time, Speech Talk Live. And I also mentor the Coursera's on-demand platform course called Introduction to Public Speaking. So this whole kind of started out with a cohort program that we did in conjunction with Coursera. And then after that 10-week course ended, we just basically decided to turn this into a program to kind of help that community on this Google Plus Hangout as a way of helping them. So let me just give you the purpose why we do this. So as I always say, the public speaking is like an ongoing thing. You know, you're always working to improve. And the purpose of this Speech Talk Live there are four reasons. One is that we all want to improve, so we want to learn. Second is that some of us have been doing this now for quite some time, and we feel that we can help others. So part of our goal also is to teach others so that they can get up to speed quickly. The third thing is that once you record a speech, you also want to get feedback from others. So that also becomes a very important part of this, is to share the speeches. And today we have Lathesh, who has generously shared one of his speech that he worked on. And next week, I'm pretty sure we'll get Julie's speech that she's been working on for quite some time. And the purpose of sharing is that once you have done your own self-evaluation and you feel like at this point you have taken it as far as you can, that's when you want to bring it here, and that's when we can give you some real, so that way you can drive the process. And the fourth thing is just support. Public speaking is fearful. I mean, let's face it, people have tremendous fear. Everybody you talk to, you'll find out that they're afraid to speak. They all want to do it, but they're all afraid. And this is the place where you can get your fear out. Because I have this saying that there is no such thing as public speaking. It's only speaking. There's good speaking, bad speaking, or no speaking. Okay? So at this point, I will have the other participants who are on to introduce themselves, and then we will start. So before we get started, so we have three segments today. The first segment is going to be facilitated by Soumyan Tirumurthy, and he's picked an interesting topic here because it's not necessarily about public speaking, but again, like I said, there is only speaking, right? Whether it's good speaking, bad speaking, and no speaking. And what do you do after you say hi to somebody? So this is more like a conversational thing. But I think it's very important because introduction is very key. If you don't introduce, that is the most important speech. And I think I'd like to hear what he has to say about that and then have a discussion around that. The second segment is going to be reviewing Lathesh's speech that he has sent us. So we're going to give him a feedback and at the same time use his speech to teach others and also learn from it. And lastly, the third segment is that I picked the speech. This one is a little different kind of speech that I picked. Up to this point, we have gone with real high-powered speaker. This person is maybe not be well known, but she is known. I do know her because I do see her on TV quite a bit. And I found one of her speech that I think my father pointed out, and I decided to use this speech as a way to find out, look at what she does well and what could be done better. So that's the purpose of using her speech as a way to learn and also to see what we can learn from what she has done and how we can make it better. Okay? So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Julie to introduce herself, and then we'll go around, and then we'll kick off the first segment. Julie, take over.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Hey, Jay, Lathesh, and Soumyan. Thank you again for being here, and thank you, Jay, for leading this. I am interested today in, Well, I am also a fellow student and a mentor. I actually have been in this class since last October, and I thought I would just pop in and pop out in 3 months, and I've discovered that uh, public speaking is really a wonderful forum to really help me to connect with myself, first of all, because it helps me to organize ideas. And the second thing that it really helps me to do is to reach out. I have been doing this informative speech, as Jay says, for a long time, and I'm going to deliver it next week. And one of the things I was told is that my energy is naturally calm and serene. And to me, that meant I could put you to sleep. And so I started doing some really there's a rinse eyes technique, which is also a yogic technique, is you just go, ah, ah, and then put the energy down the bottom. So I've been doing that. And so hopefully my energy is picked up and you feel more alive. And with this, I turn back over to Jay. Thank you.
All right, I like this new Julie. Yeah, that should be exciting. I can't wait to see that progress there. Lathesh, you want to go next?
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Thank you, Julie, and hi, Soumya. So it's a great day for me, to end my Friday with this connect with you all. My name is Lathesh Balakrishna, and I'm based out from India. That's the south part of India, Kochi. And I work in the software industry as a project manager. So I use this platform to improve my speaking skills, and I get plenty of opportunities to keep improvising myself and to be comfortable with public speaking. The team here is very helpful with constructive feedback and various areas wherein I can find improvements there. So it has been very helpful both in my personal and professional life to be a part of this particular platform. So thank you, Jay. Over to you again.
Thanks, Lathesh. And I will at this point let Soumya introduce himself, and then we'll get started with segment one.
Thank you, Jay. You see, today I was in fact going to talk about self-introduction as a topic, and maybe this self-introduction that I'm making would be a small sample of what I expect a typical self-introduction is going to be like. My name is Soumyan. I'm from Bangalore. Bangalore is called Silicon Valley of India. So when you say Silicon Valley, immediately you associate it with the computer industry, the software industry. Yes, Bangalore is famous for these, but I came from the computer peripheral industry. Of course, I'm 67 years old and I retired about 7 years back. And ever since, I've been mixing some amount of voluntary work along with some consultancy practice. My primary preoccupation in voluntary work is as a Wikimedia volunteer or evangelist. It's in this connection that I got interested in public speaking, because in order to talk about Wikimedia and create awareness to people, as well as to bring in more authors who will contribute, I need to use informative speech as well as persuasive speech. And so in that context, the discourses certainly helped me to bridge a gap which I felt was existing in my personality. Okay, so the public speaking course is not the only one I have done in Coursera. I also have done some more courses which perhaps reveal my interest. I have done courses essentially on thinking processes. For example, there is a course called model thinking, there is another called mathematical thinking, and a third one called critical thinking. So a whole series of these kind of subjects is something I took up. Then I also took up things on communication. One was on English composition, and this one is on public speaking, these kind of things. I also did courses on data processing and psychology and music and so on. Those are all different dimensions. But I thought the audience for this particular speech will perhaps appreciate the things related to the thinking process and the communication process. So that's what I wanted to be known by. So that brings me to the end of my self-introduction, and I hope to share some more ideas when I talk about what do you say after you say hi. Thank you.
All right, Soumyan, thanks a lot. And I'm going to take a brief pause and then introduce the next segment so that way I can then cut it over easily when I edit this. Okay, so I'm going to take a quick pause and then I'll come back. Okay, well, welcome back. This is Jay Oza, and you're watching Speech Talk Live, episode number 9, and we're moving to segment number 1. And in this segment is going to be facilitated by Soumyan Tirumurthy, and this one is about what do you say after you say hi to somebody. So I'll let Soumyan introduce it and then give a little talk and then facilitate the discussion on this. Soumyan, take it over.
Thank you, Jay. My interest in this topic was triggered by watching a large number of introductory videos on the first assignment of the public speaking course. We were given something like 4 minutes to talk about ourselves and introduce ourselves, but I found that most people just spent about 30 seconds. They perhaps simply said, I'm so and so, I came from such and such a place, I'm interested in becoming a great public speaker, and I like XYZ as a public speaker. So that's all. That took less than 10 seconds. Most people just seem to say only that much. Then it got me thinking about what is it that people find difficult in in introducing themselves, or what they should say and how they should say that. So this is an area where I started thinking deeper. One thing I found was maybe people in that kind of context, maybe people restricted it to just 4 sentences because they wanted to get rid of this. Perhaps was their first speech and they wanted to get rid of it as soon as possible, and they didn't want to linger on the video for longer than 30 seconds. Okay, so apparently it could have been one reason. Second could be that they really didn't quite understand what is the importance of introduction. Okay, and a third one is maybe they had a 5-page CV and they felt that the 2 minutes that was available to them was too little to really cover that, and just decided to let it go. Okay, so this could be one of the things. Anyway, I just thought I will address this and also cover certain other general conversational situations. If you really look at apprehension, you don't have to have apprehension to talk about yourself. Okay, so you are the best author of an article about yourself, and nobody else knows more than you, and so you can the content at least is something on which you can be very confident, and there is no need to feel apprehensive about it. Second is what's the importance of talking about yourself. At least in the context of this speech course, I would like to say something before I move to another topic. In this course, people are going to need a study buddy. The self-introduction is perhaps going to be a great opportunity for people to advertise about themselves and make their their interests, etc., known, so they can choose an appropriate study buddy. Okay, so if people think that they are going to bank on their friends and relatives and all for their practice speeches, they are mistaken. It's perhaps okay to use the relatives and friends for overcoming apprehension and to for the initial phase, but after that they will perhaps not be in a position to help you much. What happens to insurance agents when they start soliciting business? All their friends slowly vanish. Okay, very soon they are left with no friends. So if you try to go and say, hey, here is a speech, I want to talk about this topic, and can you give me a feedback? Very soon you will lose all your friends. So please don't try to do that. So who is the best person you can pick for this kind of conversation related to working together? Yet another student in Coursera who is also undergoing the same course, who knows the same terminology, who can perhaps give feedback under the same structure, etc. He is the best suited person. That's one. One is he can give you feedback in the same structure, etc., which you can effectively use. Second is that guy needs you as much as you need him. Okay, so the situation is you need a guinea pig and he needs a guinea pig, let's say. So you can both use each other as a guinea pig and tolerate them or enjoy them as the case may be. Okay. The third aspect is Okay, fine. One can say, look, if all that I need is a study buddy, perhaps the program gives me a random choice of study buddies to review, and what's the big deal? This is where I bring in the aspect of introduction. In an introduction, you need to reveal sufficient information about you so that the other person can understand and relate to your interests and react to that. See, you are going to be perhaps talking about, you are going to be making informative speeches. You are perhaps going to be making persuasive speeches. In informative speech, what will you do? You will talk about an area of your expertise. In a persuasive speech, what will you do? You will talk about a cause for which you have a lot of passionate passion. So you want to support the cause. So the person who is going to review tens of videos of yours should be able to appreciate these aspects. You should share your passion. You should be able. You should be curious about the informative speeches that you are going to make. If their tastes are going to be very different, it's going to be one major problem. You are not going to be able to work out a long-term relationship at all. So this is the reason why I say you must reveal sufficient information about you. Recently, I was talking to my brother-in-law who was president in Rotary Club in another city, Chennai. I asked him, what do they do? How do they introduce themselves when they go and meet new people? Apparently, there is some kind of protocol there wherein they have to say what do they do as part of their introduction. There is some kind of a small structure that is there apparently. So you say, this is my name and I do such a thing, and you introduce yourself about your professional area. You say talk about your expertise or your profession and your interests, your passions. What are the kind of voluntary activities for which you have been espousing and things like that. So that seems to be very close to what I was observing here. I was observing here you need to talk about your expertise, you need to talk about your passions, and it so happens that in Rotary Club also apparently they were saying the same thing in a personal context where you meet individually, you talk about the same thing. The only difference is in a speech context, there is no conversation really. We are asked to use a conversational mode of communicating, but then we really don't have a dialogue happening. Whereas in a face-to-face discussion, we have the opportunity for a dialogue. In an opportunity for a dialogue, the other party also has got equal amount of capacity to pull the introduction in directions in which they are interested in, because they are going to put some questions. Whereas in a public speaking kind of situation, you are going to have a monologue. You are going to say how you want the other person to perceive you. So here it gives you a kind of opportunity, like in marketing we say positioning. You position yourself, saying that, look, this is the way I want my audience to be viewing me. So you have the ability to position yourself and introduce yourself in some particular way. So that's one difference. In the face-to-face situation, the other person also can pull and drift the organization. Conversation in that direction, get some more information. So that's a possibility. The other aspect I was talking about earlier is maybe some people are overrun and they have a 5-page CV, and how do they fit it into 2 pages? Look, I mean, as I was aging, I was becoming a little fuller, and my pants were no longer fitting. Okay, so similarly, my CVs also kept on bloating. They became from 2 pages, they slowly became 5 pages. So it was very difficult for me, to trim that back to 2-page CV. So ultimately, nobody is interested in a 5-page CV. They don't have the patience. They don't have the time. So as a consultant, when I started my practice, I had to send one self-introduction of mine to my clients, and that I had to focus in such a way that I don't bring all my 45 years of experience. I only talk about the 2 or 3 aspects which are relevant to that client and highlight that and make it interesting. So that is what the new dimension turned out to be. So this way, we need to know 2 factors. We need to only talk about 2 factors, and those 2 must be the ones which help us to position ourselves appropriately. And we must make it more interesting. When we say that, we must make it interesting. So that is what is important. We don't have to cram in 2 pages of PDF document into 2 minutes, but we should be able to say 2 factors, 2 aspects of our personality, 2 facets of our personality. So coupled with the previous thing, the previous example I gave, the 2 factors that we can talk about are our area of expertise and our passion. In which area does our passion lie? So this is applicable both for a public speaking situation as well as introductory a situation where we introduce ourselves to other people. This is what I have to say. Thank you.
Oh, that was excellent. Yeah, so let me comment on that. What Soumyan just said is kind of what my book is about, actually. And one of the things that I found is that the reason why people struggle at public speaking is that when they're giving a public speaking, they don't really sound like the way they sound when they are talking to their friends. So in a way, you're kind of out of your natural way of speaking, and then they struggle, freeze up, and then they get nervous. And one of the things that what Soumyan said was like, how do you start a conversation? And I've been giving a lot of thought to this. And in my book, what I say is that you all heard of small talk, right? Like, so I'm gonna like, hey, Julie, you want to role play this? So let's say, so Julie, okay. So let's say Julie and I are meeting, okay? Julie, you don't know me, okay? But somehow we happen to be on this hangout, okay? So I'll say, hi, Julie.
Hi, Jay. How are you?
Yeah, so is this your first time using this format, and what do you think of it?
Oh, yes. It's my first time on the Hangout, and it's both intimidating and cool. It's intimidating because I never know who I'm really talking to, you know. And before coming on, literally the whole world can come on, and so that always is a little bit of scary for me. But it's also cool because I love to reach out and touch the world and interact with people. So what do you think?
Well, I'm not going to scare you. Well, you know, it's interesting. It's interesting you mentioned that. That's how I felt when I first started. But then little by little, as I started doing this show called Speech Talk Live, I'm gaining more confidence. So, you know, at this point, I don't want to say I'm a pro at it, but at least I'm feeling comfortable with this format. And in the beginning, I was kind of frightened. Okay, I'll stop it right here. Okay, so let me tell you what I just did here, which is something. So I said hi to Julie, and Julie said hi. Okay. Now, typically in an introduction, what typically happens is that you got to up the ante. You got to up the ante. If I say hi to Julie and Julie just says hi, the conversation at that point gets very awkward because she just essentially ended it, right? But in my case, what I did was I just didn't say, because I'm initiating the conversation, so I said hi, but then I suddenly just asked her a question because it was already assumed, and I said, wait, what do you think of this format? Because she's already there, right? So I already took it to the next level. And the other thing that I did here, there's something that a lot of people don't get, is that once you meet somebody new, you don't keep peppering them with questions. It's very uncomfortable. You ask one question, so I did. I said, so what do you think of this Hangout format? Because that's a small talk. It's contextual, right? She's on a Hangout, I'm on a Hangout. I'm not bringing up something about like, hey, Julie, what do you think of Donald Trump? That would be very jumping to the next level, and that she'll be like, who's this weirdo? Why is he asking me about Donald Trump? I don't even, like, do I know him? So you got to be careful. First, you got to start with the small talk to get that comfort level, because that's contextual. Then you have to share something. Okay, so immediately after she told me about her experience, I did not ask her another question. I immediately shared my experience with it. Now what that does is suddenly Julie's now saying, oh wow, suddenly he's giving me some more information about him that I didn't know about. And then that conversation then progresses, you see? So we started from high, and immediately we're both getting comfortable with each other, and perhaps can move from small talk to, as I call it, mid talk, and perhaps even big talk, right? And anyway, that's one of the things that people do need to practice. A lot of conversations essentially go nowhere because people are just not good at having conversation. They don't know what to do after they say hi. So anyway, at this point, I'll let others chime in on that. But Soumyan, I've been giving a lot of thought to it, and thanks for bringing this topic up, because it is the most important thing we do when we meet people, right? We always engage in small talk. The question is, how do you go from a small talk to mid talk in a seamless manner, so you're not suddenly intimidating the other person, like, my God, this guy's coming on too strong. And one thing I will differ from what you just said, you want to take out what you do, because then what you'll do is you'll dominate, like I'm dominating right now, you'll dominate the conversation and not let other person speak. So the main thing that you're good at, like in your case, you're like a Wikipedia or whatever, like you said, you have a CV that's 5 pages long, don't even bring that up. Just completely suppress that. Then you can have a real good conversation. Say something that you don't want to talk about, something that you know a lot about, but take that out of the equation altogether. Okay, at this point, I'll shut up and let others talk.
Yeah. Jay, I appreciate that. What you have brought up is a very interesting point, in the sense every person in a conversation has to give some additional hook, a new hook, on which the conversation can be built. Okay, so if you don't provide any hook at all, and you just say, well, for example, as you said, somebody says hi and another person also responds hi, then you're not building. Okay, so the idea is each person should be able to make the conversation easy and provide an additional hook. If there is no hook also, we can always create one. Suppose I say, look, I'm Soumyan, I'm from Bangalore. Maybe if I say I'm from Bangalore, that itself gives the other person maybe a hook. Oh, Bangalore, where is it located? Or how is it? How is Bangalore? I have never been to Bangalore. So many things can be said. So it's a art and to catch on to every hook and be able to build upon. So, in my primary this one, when I talked about somebody talking about a few more things, I was only referring to the public speaking kind of situation where you really don't have a conversation going. In a face-to-face conversation, you have a dialogue that develops. Each one can say something. In that situation, if I want to say some 5 or 6 factors, 5 or 6 sentences, it will be very awkward, very meaningless. So there I can go by sentence, and I mean the other party also is able to, by their counter question or their counter response, they are in a position to shift the conversation in a certain direction. Whereas in a speech situation, that opportunity is not there. So that's the one in which you go ahead and position yourself, because you have no conversation going on. So you might as well use it to your advantage, saying that I position myself like this. So even in a personal thing, one can always manipulate in such a way that you can position yourself. That's also possible. But then in a natural conversation situation, the other party also provides enough amount of hooks to to formulate the overall structure of how the speech is going to take place. Yeah,
let's get Julie and Lathesh to comment on this. Yeah, go ahead, Julie.
Okay, thanks. So just to recap, I really appreciate some of the stuff you said, and that helps me. So I'm going to say what I find useful, and that's how it helps me. So I think it's really nice to have Soumyan's suggestion to have a couple factors. So like work and passion, for instance, and then also to have a hook. I think those are really great. And then I really appreciate what Jay said, literally, about the way to start is to asking a question within the context of where the engagement is, because that really makes both us stay present and comfortable. And the other thing is revealing something about oneself. That really helpful. And then the idea that somehow there's a seamless transition from small talk to mid talk, and I will appreciate what those terms mean. Maybe you can do a presentation on that. And then I like Soumyan's idea of doing a hook. My own personal experience is I'm very comfortable, and therefore I feel I'm very good in a group setting where I'm either facilitating or being facilitated in the introductions. So someone will say, tell me about yourself. I find it's very challenging in a party situation or even in a networking environment. So I think these ideas are really helpful for me in in areas where I'm not comfortable. So I hope to take your ideas and put it into a little script, and maybe I'll practice that and demonstrate that. So that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Yeah, and we can certainly use this as a way to, like we just did a role play there. We could definitely do that at time. All right, Lathesh, go ahead.
Lathesh, you have something to say?
He might be having some technical difficulties.
Yes, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I hope I'm audible. Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I think I'm having some trouble.
Yeah, we're not able to hear you. All right, so we'll just any clue? Okay, Soumyan, we're unable to hear Lathesh, so I'll turn it over back to Soumyan. Soumyan, any closing thoughts? Because I think we can cover it.
See, when I was preparing for this initially, I was looking more at the introductory speech as the trigger point from which my entire thought process emanated. Jay certainly brought in the other context of face-to-face personal introduction and what do we say, etc. And that's the context in which I also explored a little, and then I found that what the guy from Rotary Club had to say was so remarkably close to what I was otherwise going to say. In the sense, we want to talk about our expertise, and we want to talk about our passion. And in the Rotary Club also, apparently, those are the kind of topics on which the conversation is initiated. One is since as a Rotary, they are involved in a lot of voluntary activities. They want to know about the passion, so that's one important thing for them. And also, they want to get introduced about their professional work also. So those are the two dimensions which apparently they also start that conversation. So that kind of a thing was remarkably similar. That was something I was quite appreciative of.
Yeah, we got Soumya. We got Lathesh back. Lathesh, you have any comments on it before we close out this first segment? Lathesh, can you hear me? You have any comments on this? Otherwise, we're going to have to move to next segment. Looks like he's having some technical difficulties. All right, so at this point, yeah. Okay. At this point, I'm going to take a short pause, and then we'll move to segment 2, which is reviewing Lathesh's speech. Okay? Okay, welcome back to Speech Talk Live. My name is Jay Oza, I'm the host, and we're at episode number 9. We're moving to segment number 2, and in this segment, we use it to review a speech that somebody has kindly shared with us. And today we're going to review a speech that Lathesh Balakrishna has sent us to provide him feedback. And his topic is on how online presence is shaping our identity. So we'll have him introduce the speech, and at this point what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it on to Julie, who will facilitate this session. So Julie, take over.
Hi, thank you, Jay and Lathesh and Soumyan. And yes, Lathesh has bravely come to us to get some feedback on his speech, which is how is internet affecting our identity? I'm going to see if Lathesh can share with us. If not, I will do it. What he wants from the speech, and also what his speech is about. Lathesh, can you speak at all? Can you? Is there any kind of audio? If not, perhaps you can. Oh, great.
Yes.
Great. Please give us like a few minutes, a quick discussion of what your speech is about and what kind of feedback you would like from us.
Sure. So my speech is about the current trend that we are seeing, because everybody is equipped with smartphones, tablets, iPads. So when we are living in an era where there is a lot of connectivity happening, and most of it is happening in the virtual environment. So the reason I took this particular topic was to provide an insight about how our usage, specifically when we are going to use, we are going to browse through various websites, we are going to go through so many social forums, etc. All these activities are actually being recorded somewhere. Some organizations are using this to probably sell our identities across. So I wanted to highlight this, and it was more like whether we are living in an environment or in a particular era where whether our exclusivity or our identity, which is so personal to us, is it really a place wherein we should be careful whether we need to go around browsing the sites, etc., with also in mind that somebody is watching us all the time. So that's the purpose of this particular talk, and it was more of an argumentative and informative, a mix of both. So I tried to do some kind of role play also, just to bring in some kind of a glamour factor. Yeah, thanks, Julia. Back to you.
Okay, thank you. Great. Well, one of you, thank you, Lathesh. I got that. You like, what kind of feedback would you like? Just like start anything?
Yeah, I think whether from the topic perspective, whether I was forceful enough, and from my personal communication skills aspects, from the verbal aspects as well as from the non-verbal side, and anything that I probably need to focus on to improve in any area.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Soumya, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I watched Latesh's video. One of the things I liked about it was a kind of a very, very easy. I'm sitting in front of him in another chair, and he is there and having a chat. So that's a kind of video capture, etc. was in such a mode that I felt that way. He was perhaps holding up a cell phone in his hand, and then he went out to talk about it. And towards the end of it, well, he was getting many calls, and then he switched over to another topic. Fine, it was all very nicely, arranged. I think that was a very interesting way of, recording an event. I like that style very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Soumya. Yeah. Jay, would you like?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Julie. Yeah. So one of the things that I like, Lathesh, your style is really good. I like the way you have that conversational style of speaking to people. The only thing I'll comment on that is that this was a speech. You really needed to be doing it standing up, because we can't see your body language, and body language is very important in a speech. And I think because you were doing it sitting down, this is what I noted. In one sense, there were like a lot of positives there, because you came across very somebody that we know, very friendly, conversational, like almost like you can connect with people. But what that also did was this, I think, kind of hurt the speech a little bit, is that the speech kind of lacked the focus here. And let me just point this out, because when you first started the speech and said that the speech is on how it's going to shape your identity, right? I think it was very important to define those two things. Like, you do talk about the online presence, but there was no real explanation as far as, well, before I go into how it's shaping your identity, let me first explain to you the online presence that you're all familiar with, such as using the smartphones. You kind of showed that as far as like getting on the WhatsApp, but remember, your audiences may not be familiar with that. So you have to basically assume that your audience is not in on what you're doing. Okay, so you have, the burden is on you to explain that. And I think you made a lot of assumptions here, which I think that perhaps you shouldn't have. And one is to clearly define, even though it sounds like, wow, people know it, but it doesn't hurt to say, well, here's what I mean by online presence. But the one definition you really needed to focus on was identity, because people have different understanding of what is an online versus offline identity. That's a broad topic, actually. That's a complex topic. So right off the bat, when I first heard that this is about shaping your identity, I was expecting this talk to first level set it, and then go into it and explain to what are the different identities you're really talking about. And one thing I noticed in your speech is that after you use that word identity, you didn't come in back and mention the word identity till like almost like 9 minutes into your talk. And that is just too long when you're talking about identity. You can't wait till 9 minutes to talk about it. And that's when you were talking about Sherry Turkle's book, Alone Together. And when I look at this speech, there are a lot of different speeches in this one speech, actually. The identity part really is a very small portion of this speech. Actually, it's only about 2 minutes when you're talking about Sherry Turkle. And that's the part where I said, wow, now he's getting to the point, but it's too late at this point. And then at the end, you ended with the organization. That's a totally different topic altogether. That's about how companies are capturing your information and can understand your identity. So a lot of this stuff did not come across very clearly to me as somebody who's like my job is to become smarter from listening to your speech. And I didn't come across really understanding more about identity. I got a lot of the things that you're doing as far as using Facebook and using Google and all that. That's all fine. But that had nothing to do, as far as from I can tell, about identity. It wasn't explained in a way, what does that mean as far as shaping online identity is concerned. So maybe I'm being too critical here, but I just wanted to be fair to you, because I think you have a lot of stuff in here, but it needs a better structure here, because the structure was very important here, and it kind of lost the focus from when I was going, even though it was very conversational. That's why my comments are based on after viewing this 3 times. So that's why when I watched it the first time, you came across very conversational, and I said, wow, he's saying a lot of stuff here that but then I said I had to go dig deeper here. That what did I actually understand from this speech? And that's when I said, wow, this speech really needed a little bit of a solid structure so I could follow along where exactly is he taking me. And the other thing I would point out is that when you're talking about something like online identity, you've got to have a position. I don't know what your position was on this online identity. There was a lot of information there, but there was no real position that I could discern whether there's a good side, there's a bad side, etc. So I mean, those are my comments, and you're obviously welcome to challenge if I didn't understand the speech. But those are my impression after watching the speech a few times, 3 times, I would say. Those are my. Anyway, I'll pass it back to Julie.
Thanks, Jay. Before I chime in, Soumya, the audio went out after you said something like the speech is very, very something. And I didn't hear that something. I thought maybe you want to say that again for the audience.
I really don't know where I said that very, very, etc.
Oh, in the beginning, okay. Your initial impression.
It was a very, very friendly, conversation. It was almost like he was chatting with me in my drawing room at my home. Okay. So that is the kind of feeling he was able to create. So that, I think, was by itself a very good technique, is what I thought. I fully appreciate what Jay said in terms of body language, arm, hand-related movement, etc., being lost. Yes, that's certainly a possibility. But fine, this came out as a very friendly conversation. If I want to go and talk to somebody else about their online identity, and I want to talk to lay people in the homes, they also need to protect themselves about this, from this online identity related misconceptions, etc. They need to become aware. So there, I think a friendly, very, very friendly posture like that was very useful. So that's the way I found it.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so
Okay.
thank you so much, Somian. So Latish, I really got also the impression that you're very friendly, and I felt like an easy conversation, like maybe even like I can imagine there's like a fireplace, like in England, those BBC movies, and in the comfort and stately home, we're engaging in this philosophical discussion. Um, Perhaps this is, and I'm okay with that body language you have because it induces a sense of comfort and intimacy and a conversational style. So I don't think we always have to be making a speech. And I think that was underscored by the fact that you kind of look like you were just being interrupted because you turn around and you say, "Oh, I'm sorry." It's like, "Oh, you want me to pay attention to you? I'm sorry." And here I am. So I really thought that underscores this conversational tone. I agree with Jay in the sense that um, a couple of things. First of all, that perhaps there was a lack of focus and a central idea. I perhaps would just so that show you my experience. My title of this will be how is this online experience affecting our sense of existence, in identity, in relationship, in the way we live our lives. And so that's a very broad topic, and then that could perhaps help gear me to what you really want to share with us. And then the underlying idea that we're always being watched and the mega companies are collecting data about us, I actually missed that altogether. And honestly, I did not have a chance to watch this 2 or 3 times. The other thing, I wanted to say one more thing. Oh, yes, this is my own challenge as well. So I capture that is, I think you make the point very well and you make the experience very well. But in public speaking class, they talk about linking the evidence to the idea. So I feel like in the first part, when you talk about your life and that you're not married, but you're so busy online engaged, and then all these wonderful things like the doggy thing, those are the facts. And then you talk about the ideas online affecting people, but I never felt like you linked the two together for me. And I would like that. And actually, that's something I need to do. And then finally, I just want to really underscore that, as you know, I'm a friendly person, I'm a funny person, I can be spontaneous. But my my practice videos that you guys have seen, all says I'm pretty stiff like a robot. So I really appreciate that you can channel and transfer this sense of comfort and intimacy and relaxation and that of exploration as the underlying tone of this meeting. So perhaps you can deliberately choose a style. If you're making a speech about life cycle, QA, you want to come on more formal. But you're really gifted with this conversational style. So with this, I turn this. I'll say, do you have any more questions, Latish?
No questions. I think the feedback was pretty good. Can I say something about those feedbacks?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think the feedbacks given by Soumyan about being friendly and the conversation style. So that's what I actually intended in this video. I wanted to do a kind of a role play and bring out the actual platform, or rather like the style that I wanted to instead of doing the talking, it was more of an actions which would actually give some insights. So yeah, but Jay mentioned it correctly, because I was making a lot of assumptions there. that people already must be aware that we live in an era where the internet has penetrated almost every sphere of our life. So from that angle, I did make a lot of assumptions there. Yeah, from the content angle, probably I should have evolved it a bit more and given more focus on the identity part. I was trying to actually build a story right from the various aspects of the various stages of my day-to-day activity, how I do my socializing on various forums, and how various people channelize their information through that, and how it goes into very various aspects of my identity. So, and in fact, most of us are, I think most of us would be on the same page when it comes to accessing all these websites. And then what is happening is like most companies are using this information that we are doing in the search engines. We are accessing all the websites, etc. This information is available for being sold. So I wanted to do that part through a role play. And probably, Julie, you're right that I should have probably linked it with an evidence, which probably is something that I should try to work on, to have evidence linked to the main objective of what the conversation is going to be about. So yeah, pretty much good, very good feedback. So I'll definitely look into it and try to incorporate as much as possible, because every talk is different. So I look forward to incorporating these in my future talks. Thanks.
Thank you.
I want to say something. I sent an email immediately after I reviewed this talk. I think I made some observations more about the video and things like that. I thought this video was captured directly on YouTube and published or something like that. Is that kind of comment I made to you, Lathesh?
Somin, I'm sorry, I didn't see that mail. I'll check again.
Okay, you didn't receive any feedback from me? Okay, maybe, I don't know, I need to re-look at that. I am not able to trace the mail.
I got it. I got that email, Somian.
You saw that email? Okay.
I saw that email, yeah.
One of the things I felt was, when I viewed that, it came out very choppy, in the sense, there was, the bandwidth perhaps was not good enough. You are trying to broadcast directly and record onto YouTube directly is the way I thought. You are not capturing it as a separate video and then uploading to YouTube. So when I do a 10-minute talk and upload to YouTube, it takes about 20 minutes. So when I take that process, when I take that approach, a high-quality video gets uploaded to YouTube. If I try to upload directly live, what happens is within the 10 minutes itself, the available bandwidth it has to adjust, and so it takes a very low resolution video, and sometimes the audio quality also gets affected. I thought that the video had that problem. It was a bit choppy, and to that extent, a continuous free-flowing listening experience could not be had. So I think in the past, Julie also had one or two recordings of that nature, and I had given the same feedback. Wherever we try to upload directly to YouTube, you will have this bandwidth-related problem and a choppy audio and a grainy video. So I suggest you record it online, on your computer, and then upload. It will take more time, doesn't matter. It will be a much better quality video. So that's the feedback I wanted to give.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Jay. And it's you have it now.
All right, Julie, great job. And again, Lathesh, let me thank you for submitting that. And I think one of the things that I like to do is not to just use your speech as giving a feedback, but as a way to help others. So I really thank you for recording your speech. I hope, and again, at the end, the main thing I want to point out is that the best person is yourself. You have to evaluate your own speech. What we're giving you is based on how we perceived it. At the end, it's what you think of it that really matters, right? And when you bring it here and give a feedback, and what we give you, you can take it or you can say, okay, that's one person's feedback. But at the end, the real feedback is the one that you're giving to yourself. So I just want to make that clear, that in these type of, whenever you share a speech, the feedback that you're giving yourself is the one that really counts, and then you can decide what part you want to use. So anyway, thanks again for the speech, and hopefully we'll see more of your speeches in the future. Okay?
Sure. Thanks, Jay. Thanks.
All right, great. So at this point, I'm going to take a brief pause, and then we'll start the segment 3. Okay, welcome back. This is Jay Oza, and we're doing Speech Talk Live, episode number 9, and we're moving to segment number 3. And in this segment today, up to this point, we have looked at professional speeches of really high-powered speakers such as Steven Spielberg, John Cleese, Amy Cuddy. This speech is from a person that you may not know well. Her name is Monica Mehta, and I see her on TV quite a bit here in the United States. She comes on shows here like Fox News, MSNBC, and others. I mean, if you go on YouTube, you'll see her that she's appeared on a lot of these different programs where she talks about small businesses, entrepreneurship, and overall how the economy is affecting small businesses on many of these financial shows. And actually, I got to know about her from my dad. Actually, he must have watched her on one of the programs that he was watching and said if I knew her or her book. She has written a book called Entrepreneurial Instinct, and this particular speech is about that entrepreneurial instinct. And I wanted to use this speech because I think she does some things well, but I think the speech could have been made a lot better from my perspective. And I think one time Julie was asking me, like I had said, like the speeches are either boring, bad, boring. There are only 4 kinds of speeches, right? Boring, bad, boring, good, entertaining, or inspirational. I would classify this speech as boring, good. And the reason for that is that of course, she's an author, so she's written a book on this, Entrepreneurial Instinct. But I think she could have done a lot more with this speech. I think the speech was essentially like a functional speech, like I'm going to tell you what I know. But I think what she kind of misses in this speech is that as an audience, I'm not sure I became any smarter by listening to this speech. Now, she covers a lot in this speech. It's a 30-minute speech. And some of the comments that Monica Mehta is like, she's an author, she's a journalist, she's an investor, and she's written this book called Entrepreneurial Instinct. So let me just kind of give you my feedback on how I perceived it. I think the speech is uneven in many ways, actually. And one of the first things that I noticed is, and I did some research also on this one, and just so you know, I don't know her, I never met her, or nothing. So this is just my knowing her from watching the speech and on the internet. She talks about an example right in the beginning about Rita and Sunil. And if you watched it, it doesn't become obvious that she's really talking about her parents. It's almost like these are 2 people that she just knows or she's just doing a research on, but she never kind of says that these people are people that I know really well. I've seen them right from the beginning. And it's never made that clearly, and I think she misses that opportunity to do that. It was very important for her to, because she spends a lot of time talking about Rita and Sunil, and it's a really good example on what she's talking about. And then what she could have done was she could have taken her parents as an example about what she has learned about entrepreneurship that she talks about as far as risk-taking, fear and motivation, and brain chemistry. And this is something that Julie just mentioned previously. She does not link it to her own parents. And I thought that was a lost opportunity. I mean, here you've been brought up, raised by parents that are entrepreneurs, but your speech almost looks like, hey, here's an example, and now I'm going to tell you exactly how you become an entrepreneur. And there's no real linkages to this. And, I mean, she's a real smart woman here. She's an Ivy League graduate, but if she had done that, I think the speech would have been very effective, and she somehow doesn't do that. I don't know why, but it could be that this is my understanding. One of the things she talks about is that entrepreneurship, she's saying, is very hard to teach. There are these different processes, but one of the things that I guess you may not want it to say is that that she's in a unique advantage is because she's brought up in an entrepreneurial family. That's why she knows so much about it, and that's why she's in a position to write a book. That it's not that simple that everybody can become an entrepreneur. There's something that she knows that other people out there are not going to know. Like, my father's an accountant, and I know a lot about accounting just being around him. And she evidently knows a lot about entrepreneurship because her parents themselves are entrepreneurs, and she explains it how they started out, her father being a merchant marine captain or something, working on a merchant marine, her mother being an artist or something, a creative person, and how they grew the business, how they added more stores, and how they were able to grow their business to becoming a multi-million-dollar business. And that is true. I did research on it. They're based out of Houston. So she has a very compelling story, but I don't think it was told that well. And at this point, I'd like to get your feedback. And the reason I use this speech is that John Cleese gave a speech where we looked on creativity. And it's hard to compare her to John Cleese. John Cleese is a great speaker. And I believe that for her speech, she had to get to that level on how John Cleese was able to turn his speech, which was like entertaining, yet he covered a lot of content in his speech. This woman has a lot of content, but it never got to that point where you could really get into the speech. And that's what but the reason I included this speech is because the topic she had the opportunity to get it to John Cleese level, and she never is able to do that. And I think it was a missed opportunity. So I just wanted to kind of draw a contrast between what a great speech looks like when you have the content. She has the content, but she's not able to take it to that level. So there was a lot of stuff that she could have done in this speech to get it to that level. So I wanted to get feedback from you guys. What was your perception of this speech, and what she could have done to improve it? Julie?
Yeah, I actually find the topic really, really interesting. I come from the area, my origin from is an area of China called Wenzhou, and it's considered like the entrepreneurial capital of the world in China. In fact, it was one of the first free economic zones in China. And one year I went there, there were like sand gravel roads. 2 years later, I went there, there was 6-lane highway. So the entrepreneurial spirit or instinct is really very interesting topic. So with that in mind, I actually got more involved with the discussion than with the topic, with the how she presented it. But I just want to say two things with that. One is that she didn't. I want to say three things. One is she didn't introduce herself and lay down credibility or credentials. The second thing is she didn't really integrate the knowledge, as you say. And the third thing is that she called it an instinct, but it's really something that's behaviorally modifiable. So in terms of the first one, she just didn't introduce herself. Maybe she's talking to people and she was introduced before, you know. The second thing is the speech was like about 25 minutes long. She spent about, I believe, something like 9 minutes talking about her parents. So a substantial amount of time was talking about her parents. And then she talked about the techniques of how to become more entrepreneurial. But I agree with you that she never say, like, my parents took risks because they knew they had that optimism, but they also just did it without knowing why. But they also had backup plan. They know they can back out, or that they don't have a choice. They have to push forward. Because one of the things that she said is survival is a great entrepreneurial motivator. And what was the third point I was going to make? The integration. Oh, yeah, so she called it the instinct, but it's actually a paradox because she revealed the neurochemical differences, but she also gave a little recipe of what to do to increase that entrepreneurial behavior. So it becomes not just an instinct, but a skill. So that's the three things I thought that was interesting from this speech.
Okay, that's great. Yeah. There are three things that before I go to Somin and Latesh, let me just point out. I think there are three things that really kind of also that I noticed right away. One is she's reading the speech. I thought that was not that effective. She should not have to read this speech. I mean, she's written a book, so I didn't quite understand that. The other thing is that, and again, this is something maybe she didn't have a choice. She's standing behind the lectern, so you never really see her body language. She's not moving around in a stage. The body language here was very important when you want to show your passion. You can't really show that all the time behind a lectern. And the third thing is because there was a PowerPoint, you always saw her keep turning her head, like, let me see what the next slide is showing. Let me see what the red dots and the red circle and the green circle are. And again, I'm not sure this speech really needed a PowerPoint. I mean, what she was talking about was entrepreneurial instinct. There was no really need for a PowerPoint. So those three things I think that I forgot to point out that I think kind of hurt this speech. But anyway, I'll have, let's see what Somin and Latesh have to say about it. Somin?
Yeah, thanks, Ajay. I think again this is another area where I had given my detailed review in an email. Anyway, for the sake of recording this in this video, let me go through that. I agree with Jay that I suspected maybe she's talking about her parents, but she never said that explicitly. I was when I went through the second time, I was trying to really see whether there is a cue to that. It was not really there. If at all it was there, it was very subtle. But I somehow could suspect that she's talking of her parents when she talked of Sunil and Rita. Okay. Second is, I again the same observation that she was standing behind a podium and she was not showing body language. She was not really. She was reading out from the from a written speech, etc. Where some of the things which I felt were a little weak. But let's ignore all that and let's say that because it was a 30-minute long speech, she perhaps felt it is safer to use a reading kind of mode and mix reading and explanation rather than try to wing it without any such notes. That's fair enough. One of the things, I mean, now coming to the content part of it, she talked of some kind of her parents' instinct and things like that. Well, I do see this kind of instinct in a lot of communities. I mean, I've been in Gujarat in India. Gujaratis are very enterprising people. There, in fact, if I introduce myself and say I'm working for some company, I'm an employee, they will look down upon me. A person on the other side, who's talking to me may have been, running a small business selling cigarettes, as simple a business as that. But then he will think that he's a businessman, whereas I'm a salaryman. Okay. A salaryman is equivalent to a servant. Okay, so that's the kind of viewpoint they used to have, and that is an attitude that used to be there. The respect people had that for business as a pursuit far outweighed what is the real nature of the business. The product and its simplicity or whatever was just not an issue at all. They were doing business. They were taking risks. They were, living from day to day in a very, juggling various things. So that's the one in which they saw pride. Okay, so that is one kind of thing. But then at the same time, one of the things I felt was, if you really look at, I read a book called, by one Daniel Goyle about it's called Talent Code or something like that. There he talks about, if you go to Brazil, you will find everybody in the street is playing football or trying to juggle a ball, and that's the country from which you had a lot of great football players came. But then for every one of those successful football players who emerged from that society, there are some 10,000s who have not made it, who just languished in primary league or whatever it is and never made it anywhere at the top. So I think to isolate and pick up, this is something like cherry picking. You pick up one or two success cases and say, look, these people succeeded, and hence their characteristic is very desirable. It seems to be a very naive argument to me, in the sense. Well, these people were risk takers. They embraced risk. They, faced the situation as they come. They had faith in their ability to manage a problem and overcome that, and gallantly entered into new territories, etc. All that is fine. But then there may be some 1,000 people who are doing this, and 990 might have failed. So how does that make this a success formula? So if we are looking at something and trying to get an inspiration and say, is there a success formula we can take away as a lesson from this? It doesn't inspire confidence. They were outlier. They were successful. I feel that there are lots of people with who do similar risk taking, etc., and go down because of the risk. Okay, so there was an example given, but no convincing argument was given saying that this is a desirable thing and you all must follow this. It is just a description of outlier, and talking very highly about that the characteristic which promoted that kind of behavior. So I somehow was not convinced with that. So that is that was the single biggest takeaway I was looking for. If she's describing somebody to be successful and she is able to say there is a formula there, what is that formula? How can I benefit from the same formula? To say that, look, no market research was done and no risk analysis was done and all that would have been because, well, they didn't know how to do a market research. They could not do a risk analysis. Okay, now having learned market research and risk analysis, perhaps I have become doubly cautious, and maybe my instincts, etc., got nullified to a larger extent. That may be true. I am willing to accept that. Okay, so that's the way I looked at that aspect. Okay, so that was my single biggest difference on this speech. It was a theoretical study. She was perhaps towards the end she was giving some ways by which you can improve that instinct. That is, you go out to a restaurant and go and randomly pick one menu item and eat it. So what? I mean, whatever that why do you want to bother and spend a lot of time thinking over it, analyzing it, and say whether you should pick this or pick that? Just go pick and eat. Face it. So this is the kind of thing she was saying. Well, what's the great idea? I mean, in that I really could not appreciate that. I felt that from that point of view, from the core theme point of view, I was not able to appreciate the speech. That's the situation. Thank you.
Okay, I think Soumyan had some reservation on this speech. Sorry, I picked it. Hopefully I'll do a better job next time. No, but I think the reason I specifically picked it is because the speech, I think she would have been more effective if she had just left it with her parents as an example and what she learned by observing her parents, and what does science tell us that she saw in her parents. I mean, some of the things that Soumyan mentioned, I agree with him completely. These speeches tend to be very rah-rah type, and they cherry pick one and show. But if you're going to cherry pick what she does, because if you look at it, the other example she gives, she just shows the picture of Branson, Gates, I don't know, Steve Jobs and others. It was just like a quick, and these are the typical people we keep seeing. I mean, how many times do we have to keep seeing Steve Jobs and Branson? I mean, it looks like they were the only entrepreneurs. I mean, there are so many businesses around, I see it, but we only see these people all the time. And I think she had a very compelling example. The reason I picked this speech is not to really, criticize her. I think she knows a lot about this topic. But here's an example. What I was trying to point out is that just because you know a lot about the topic doesn't mean that you're going to make me smarter. And I think that's what the speech is missing here. That here she had a real perfect example to use, and the whole speech could have been built on her own parents' example and what she's learned from science that she saw in her parents, and she just doesn't do it well. And that was the reason I included this speech, and that's why I wanted to bring that this is like, so that when you're giving a speech, if you're using some example right in the beginning, like what Julie mentioned with Lathesh, there has to be throughout the whole speech. I mean, to off topic, I'll just give you an example. We've all heard of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, right? That opening thing, da-da-da-da. And if you notice it, that thing is correct throughout the whole symphony. You hear that in different form. That's throughout. It recurs throughout the entire symphony. And in fact, I think Winston Churchill once mentioned that was his inspiration. Like, that's what a modern speech should look like. Beethoven already had figured it out in music. And here she had that. And then after that, you never hear from it after, like, she gives us the introduction of that example. Then when she's throwing all this science at us, that example is never there. And that's why I think this is a missed opportunity how not to do that when you're giving a speech. Lathesh, I'm not letting you talk, so go ahead.
Hey, thanks, Jay. I hope Monica doesn't see this talk that we are giving about. Well, for me, after all the reviews, I too have the same, the same feedback that she is not an experienced speaker. She didn't. She was not very structured in her process. I mean, she had something in mind. It's more like Soumya, you get it right when you said like, see, it's like she's already successful and she's already having her parents are already done the entrepreneurship. She has some kind of a backup. So what she is doing is like she's studying her parents. She's studying how they became successful, and she's coming up with some theoretical concepts that is from coming from her educational background because that's where she learned in a management college. So she has some. She's trying to build a connection between the theoretical concepts and what was practically seen in her parents. So and that's how I put it. Like how she puts it in a very different way, but the how it comes out is like I became successful. So and this is what I found I had to become successful, and this is what I think is needed to become successful. So these are the three things. So from I hope I am audible. Yeah. So this speech was very informative. The storytelling part in the initial half, when she introduces her parents and she introduces Domino's and all those, the as Jay mentioned, those personalities who are already very well known. So she comes up with a very strong concept in the first half. The second half slips out to more of theory, and that probably loses out the main agenda which she's trying to drive. Like I think she's giving this talk for release of a book. So maybe if as I think Jay, Soumya, and Julia already mentioned that the evidence, the story which she wants to focus on needs to be there throughout, and that linking is not there. The second half is too much of theory which goes overhead, and yeah, I think those are like very high level concepts. But I really like this particular equation which you said: risk reward equal to impulsivity plus adaptability. I mean, it sounds really a bit it's like a kind of physical equation. And she has brought in some chemical component as well, chemical, neurological, brain chemistry, and all that. So there was too much of theory and science going on as well. So it's like a mix of many things, but it finally comes out to look like a book which she's putting some low hanging fruits. She's trying giving us some carrots to bite on. So from that angle, it's a different way of doing a presentation. But all in all, there are many areas for improvement. So which we already
Yes,
discussed.
yeah. Let me just kind of like as a closing thought, I'll just go around because I think I've already given my thought on what she could have done to make this speech better. I'd like to get your feedback on what, because I think the part of it is not just to, I mean, we're just using her speech. We're not trying to make any kind of judgment on her. She's a very smart woman. She's accomplished and everything. But I think we're just looking at this one particular speech that, and it could be that maybe she didn't have a lot of time to prepare. I mean, there are a lot of factors. We have to go by what we're seeing on YouTube, right? So I don't want to take this beyond that. This is just this one speech we're looking at, and if she watches this program, I don't want her to come and sue me or anything like that, because our point is we're using this speech as a way so that we can all learn from it, because part of this course is to, and if she was on the show, I mean, if she wants to come on and we can give her a formal review, but I think she would agree because as a closing thought, Julie, Lathesh, looking at her speech, if you had to advise her, if she came on and say, okay, what can I do to improve? What would you tell her? Julie, you want to start?
Yeah, I think I'll take this for myself, is that when I give her a story in the beginning, and I'm going to try to do it in my speech next week, I'm going to make sure I'll link it to at least a couple of the ideas, so that not only do I bring the story into my ideas, but it's also a way of linking the evidence to the ideas. So I'm going to practice that. Thank you. That was a great discussion. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Soumya?
Just a minute. Yeah. See, I think ultimately look at the, I mean, I perhaps was very negative in the initial stage. I was only thinking that, if we were to look at Bill Gates and, Steve Jobs and others, and then say, look, one has to be a college dropout to be a successful software or IT czar, then that would be wrong. Okay, so but however, I think the way I look at her talk ultimately is she is trying to look at how some people have shown entrepreneurial instincts. I certainly agree with that. They all have shown a motivation to action. Okay, so they are focused more on action than analysis. We used to call this as analysis paralysis. When you go on analyzing, you don't really take any decision. In one of the companies I work for, we used to analyze so much. We used to be, criticized in the industry as, oh, that company will have a lot of analysis paralysis kind of thing. Okay, so the second is, we will face obstacle, and nobody can, even with all the planning and things like that, we will always face obstacle. And so the ability to move forward whenever we face obstacle rather than get bogged down, that is to adapt and move on, was a very good message. So that was also well taken. So these are the two good things I take from this, in the sense, get positive orientation for action, and don't expect a smooth ride everywhere, and there will be obstacles, and when you have obstacles, don't get bogged down. Keep moving forward and adapt to the circumstances and move on. So those are two good things. Maybe the other analogy, etc., like looking at red light, looking at green light, and how some people behave, all those are some kind of theoretical research, as Lathesh was also pointing out. She is, I think, trying to build from the investigation she is doing on the topic, she is trying to perhaps build some kind of a theoretical framework and put it all together. But I don't think that this would be a book, or this would be a top subject that says do this. It's a good study of this kind of thing is happening, and this is what I see happening. Okay, this is an observation and a study of some success cases. Well, there can be failure case also with similar attitudes, but for the success of these kind of people, these are the reasons. Okay, from that kind of limited analysis, it was good analysis, is what I felt. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Lathesh, any closing thoughts on this segment?
Yes, I think this talk was quite good, because most of the talks earlier had a different context. This is a different version of how we are going to talk about something which is like very interesting part of how entrepreneurial instinct has to be developed. So I actually, it was more of a push factor for me. Not the talk was not of a pull factor. It was more of a push factor, but I wanted to understand what she wanted to convey. So I put my attention to all the concepts which she was discussing about, and definitely taking a risk. Being a risk taker is something that she is driving in throughout. So that part is quite good. And also one important thing that she talked about was saying yes to about everything. So she wants us to be optimistic. I mean, it's not like, probably she doesn't want us to say yes, like, just go on and say an affirmative to everything. But what she's driving through that is like, be optimistic in your approach. But that didn't come out. We need to understand it in ourselves. It was an assumption, basically. But anyways, I think this concept itself is like very, very complex. So I think it can be better. The talk can be better. But all in all, a good one. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Lathesh. Yeah. So if Monica is watching this, Monica, we're not trying to be hard on you. We're just using your speech as a way to learn from it, because you know your subject really well. I mean, you've written a book and you're very successful. But hey, public speaking is hard, and sometimes we can all improve. And we just used your speech here to learn something from it. And again, it was well received by the audience. So perhaps we are completely off base here. So at this point, I'm going to take a brief pause, and then we'll close out this program. Okay, so that concludes this episode number 9. Okay, we have to. So I mean, you're doing another segment next week. Is that right?
That is on body language.
Something I have to check. What you have to send me some information.
That's the thing I had indicated earlier.
Okay, yeah, okay. So at this point, just
something saying that how can you make some kind of meaningful body language? Okay, so
yeah, I just want to say one thing. I think this speech, this particular segment, I may have come across a little bit more negative, but maybe I should be more positive. But I think part of this, the speech talk is not only to learn from it, but I think it's also part of it is that there are people watching it, and rather than saying that this is the right way, I think we want to help others. Like I think I may be a little bit hard on Lathesh there. I mean, Lathesh, let me just tell you, you did a great job actually as far as conversation, but I think if we don't get into dissecting it a little bit more closely, then it's not fair to you. Okay, it's not fair to you because then you will go with the impression that, oh wow, everything went well. So we have to be honest, because part of the feedback is you want to be honest, but at the same time pump somebody up so that they don't go away, crying after this speech talk. I don't think that'll happen to you, but we want you to come back next week but part of it is that it's to improve. Okay, so that's the whole point. And if I was a little bit negative, I apologize.
No. That's absolutely improvement is definitely needed, and I think this kind of feedback definitely helps me. Thanks, Jay. Thanks for that.
And if somebody wants to reach out to you, because now you've given speeches, just give your little somebody can reach out to you if they want to contact you.
Yeah, I can be reached out on my mail ID. I think Jay already puts that across the screen. So and also I'm there on the LinkedIn as well. So my name is Lathesh Lathesh, Lathesh Balakrishna. Reach me out there and do watch and try to participate as much as possible, because this is a great forum for all of us to learn. Thank you.
Okay, Julie.
Yeah, thank you. Very lively discussion today, and I actually enjoyed the candid feedback. So I welcome it next week. Also, I run a Google community, Introduction to Public Speaking, and on Saturday mornings we have a read and discuss event. So you can find all that if you Google Introduction to Public Speaking, Google Community, and please join us. Thank you.
Okay, Julie, thanks. And Soumyan, did you get a chance to give your info? Oh, he's on mute. Okay.
Okay. Sorry. I think as you rightly pointed out, our criticism of the last speech was not to belittle the author. We definitely wanted to have a critical review, and this whole exercise was one of practicing critical review. Okay, so we did it the way we saw. Fine. I mean, for that matter, we are not great speakers either. I certainly don't think that I'm anywhere near beyond LKG or something like that on this skill. So, however, it's a critical analysis also is a kind of skill. I may not be a good executor, but I may be a decent theoretician. Okay, so that's the way I look upon myself as far as public speaking is concerned at this stage. I understand many concepts, I am able to look at them critically, but I myself have not been able to bring in all the kind of critical insights I can get in my own speech. Okay, so that's the way. So as far as this particular last speech was concerned, I was looking more at the invention part of it is the one on which my criticism was. Otherwise, it was not a it was not meant to belittle the author. I'm sure the author has had her own successes and her own insights. I mean, I did appreciate some of the insights like keep pushing forward and all those things, which are very good. I definitely take them as my positive feedbacks from that. Okay. So today's meeting was also very lively. I really think that we definitely are not missing a larger participation, etc. here. So at best, the Google Hangout can take something like 10 people and not more. And we are 4, and we have been able to have a very lively conversation. That's good. Okay.
All right, Soumyan, thanks a lot. And I think that's it. Thank you again all for joining, and hopefully next week will be lively. And I think Lathesh has sent a speech. Do you want to go with that for our third segment? You had sent a Shashi Tharoor speech, I believe was?
Yes, Jay.
You want to use that? Okay, I haven't looked at it yet. So if you want to finalize that, then let's do it.
The speech has gone viral in India. I think I have seen that being shown on TV. I have seen that posted in WhatsApp and being circulated among people. It has really caught on in India. Okay, maybe it is a pro-India speech. To that extent, it may not be a ideal example for a global audience. I'm not sure. But then I think it's a good example of argumentation. It is a good impromptu speech. Shashi Tharoor is referring to some of the points which are mentioned by his predecessors, the previous speakers who spoke just a few minutes ahead of him. So he is quickly making up some counterpoints and things like that, arguing, and those were very good examples of how an impromptu speech runs.
Right. So one thing before I close, one thing I do want to point out. I think that our critical reviews of this is important from our point of view, because all of us are giving speeches. We're all recording speeches, so we do know what's working and what's not working. Like Julia's been working so hard on her speech. I mean, I think you went through like 4 or 5 iterations now. So she knows, and she's putting in a lot of F5. Oh, 10. Oh, it's like the number keeps going up. Was that 100? Okay. So that's the only way to really improve, by going through this iteration. So I really appreciate that, Julie, and keep doing it, because that's the only way all of us are going to improve. So let me know when you reach 1,000.
Yes.
All right, again, everybody, thanks a lot, and we'll see you next week. Okay?
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.